where dreams, fiction, and reality are magically intertwined, where the wishing tree starts glowing when you wish upon a star, and your passions and desires seem to echo in its bark. So, come running, swoop in, apparate, and let your fandom clamors resonate. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Teri Hatcher.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi there. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing really well. It's so good to see you again.
Nice to see you.
It's your second day at Facts, so I was wondering, did you do anything fun in Ghent yesterday?
Yes, I took a shower.
That's nice.
Not in the city, in my hotel. No, I actually walked about a mile kind of up the river to this little Japanese place, Astro Boy. Anybody know that? Oh, I see some nods. And we sat at the bar, which I always love to do because you get to watch the chefs and the cocktail waitress, and had a really lovely meal and then walked back. I mean, the churches and the buildings, the architecture, it's just a stunning, stunning city.
Yeah, well, we're so lucky to have you because we know how busy you are and how many different projects you're tackling at the same time. So I was thinking that maybe today we could go back in time for a little bit, to when you first started acting.
Okay.
I was wondering, did you always know that you wanted to become an actor?
No, not really. I was a math major in college, and I was also a dancer growing up. And I was going to college, and there was this nationwide search in the US for a dancing part on a TV show called The Love Boat. And I happened to win that, and I got cast in the show, and that was sort of how I ended up in Hollywood. And then I always kind of thought I'd go back to college, but then I just got another job and another job, and I think I tend to think of myself as someone who is a hard worker and just really puts myself into whatever I'm doing. And so I think I sort of just ended up learning on the job, and then it took quite a few years before I really sort of embraced that, oh, this is my career and this is what I'm doing. So I think I sort of fell into it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think for a lot of people, they got to know you first because of Lois and Clark. Can you talk a bit about how you were cast in that show and what it was like to be a part of a show that became so big in such a short time?
It's hard to remember exactly. I know there were multiple auditions. It was very competitive. I actually remember not my first audition, but maybe my second audition. I had worn these really high heels, and they were sort of funky, like sort of chunky, but very high heels, like a platform almost. And I remember after the audition, I was going to be called back for another audition, and one of the producers was like, "Don't wear those shoes," which is just so funny. Like I don't know why, but I remember that. So I didn't wear the shoes, and then I got the job. I think your work in a show is separate from the sort of phenomenon of a show becoming a hit or not. I think every actor approaches a job with, as much development of the character and sort of integrity to the story of the whole piece. And especially with a story like Superman, which is, a legacy kind of a thing, you want to be respectful to the character as it was played before you and as it will be played after you, and sort of the bigger genre that you're a part of. And I think that's where my concentration was, in trying to create an independent, strong Lois Lane, sort of empowered woman, but who still had vulnerability, and that was sort of my contribution to that that part of the story at that time when we shot it. But those were the things that I concentrated on.
Yeah. It was also a different time because now Marvel movies or DC movies, superhero movies in general are so big. But what was it like back then? Were there some kind of concerns about stepping into a superhero franchise?
I never really thought about it that way because I just thought about Lois Lane. I mean, the script was so good of the pilot, and honestly, I was just like, oh, this character Lois. Like, I didn't really think, oh my gosh, it's Lois Lane, and what will that mean for the future or anything. And you're right that superhero movies weren't as popular yet. But I think you never really have the expectation that something is going to be long lasting or such a big hit or anything. You're just kind of trying to do the best work you can while you're in it.
Yeah. How do you know it's time to end the show? Because you were in Lois and Clark, you were in Desperate Housewives, both of them were extremely successful. When do you know that maybe it's time to put an end to it?
Well, that's not my call. I have nothing to do with it. And so I don't know what goes into deciding that a show is at its end. Mark Cherry, I recall him being quoted as saying he didn't have any more ideas, and so to him he felt like it was the end because he didn't know how to tell their stories anymore. I felt like that show probably could have gone maybe a little longer, but I also thought that the finale was really good. I think finales of successful shows can be very difficult because the audience, has so many things they want to see wrapped up, and sometimes it's difficult to do that in one episode. But I thought they did a really good job with that. Lois and Clark was a little stranger because I don't think they really knew it was ending, and I think there's always been a little bit of mystery around why it got canceled. So I don't know that there was that purposeful thing.
Yeah.
But in general, it wouldn't be an actor. An actor wouldn't participate in when a show was going to be ending. It would be a producer call.
Even if you're such a big part of the show, I can't imagine a show like Desperate Housewives without you, for example.
You can't. Oh well, thank you. But still, I mean, well, that's very nice of you to say, and I would really enjoy being part of it. But it's still not, the producers and the writers make the decisions about how it goes.
Yeah. So another project that I really wanted to talk about is Tomorrow Never Dies.
Okay.
You were so great in it, and I was wondering what it was like stepping into a big franchise like that, with a pattern of movies that was already been drawn out for you.
Yeah.
So how did you handle the character?
Again, I think sometimes the the kind of idea or the fantasy of what it might be like to be involved in some of these things, on some level it's just a job, and then on some level, of course, you're aware of, it's a superhero thing, or it's a James Bond thing, or it's an episode of Seinfeld, that's a really big deal. I think for me, strangely, I was secretly pregnant when I got offered the movie of Tomorrow Never Dies. And when I say secretly, it was early in my pregnancy, and so we weren't really telling people yet, as many people do. They wait till 12 weeks. So it was kind of in my mind, what I'm thinking about is the joy of, oh my gosh, I'm pregnant with my first baby, and how long will it be before people notice, and how can I work? Can I get through this movie without anybody noticing? And, is that going to be okay? And that, I was having my own very personal, intimate situation with my own body while I was being a part of this very iconic movie. So to me, the most important thing was sort of what I was personally going through, not so much what the movie was. But I do remember in many ways, I don't know what it's like to be on other James Bond movies, but the big scene in that movie where it's kind of like the big gala party with Jonathan Pryce, and I remember I was wearing probably over $1 million worth of real diamonds. And there was, you know, so we're shooting the scene right here where Pierce Brosnan has his champagne and we have our little bit of dialogue, and like right there is a security guard that's like, if I take 10 steps the wrong direction, is ready to pounce on me with all my $1 million worth of diamonds, which is a crazy thing. I think as a fan you would never think, oh look, she's wearing $1 million worth of diamonds in that scene, but I was. Yeah.
Did you ever take anything from the James Bond set?
You mean like the diamonds?
Yeah.
That I wasn't going to get away with. No, I don't think I have anything from the James Bond set. I'm thinking I took from the pilot of Desperate Housewives. I don't know if you remember, there was it was part of the storyline that my daughter Julie had to make this popsicle stick Trojan horse, and I took that. So I still have that, actually, kind of, you know, just hidden away in a sort of keepsake thing.
So cool.
And I have from an episode of Night Court, I don't know, that goes back. That's a true fan, if you know that I was on an episode of the original Night Court back in the 80s. I had a mug, a black coffee mug that they gave me that said, I got my mug on Night Court, like your face, but your mug, and I still have that.
So cool. Yesterday you told us that you once were in Cabaret on the national tour. What was it like playing a character like that live on stage for, what is it, 8 times a week?
I think it was it 8 shows? 7 or 8 shows. It was 6 days, 7 or 8 shows, I can't remember. And I did the show for 7 months. Wow. I mean, it really does feel like a different person. And my daughter was really young. I was actually still breastfeeding when I was doing that. She was about like a little bit older than a year old, and so she was traveling with me. So I would kind of be mommy during the day, and then I would go to the theater and do this crazy show at night. I mean, it's such a beautiful story. It's so complicated, so dark. All the people in it. Norbert Butz was the man who played the MC when I was doing it. And the whole cast was so great, but I don't know, I guess that's what's fun about acting, is that you delve into these crazy lives that have nothing to do with you really personally. I mean, you would never really be that person, but there's a piece of you in it, and you get to explore it, and getting to do that in front of a live audience and sort of share the intimacy of what it's like to be that risky and vulnerable on stage. It's really a beautiful experience between the audience and the actors, but it kind of feels like a lifetime ago. Sometimes I think that about myself, that I've like a cat with 9 lives, because I've had all these like eras, you know, like Lois and Clark feels like an era, and Desperate Housewives feels like an era, and yeah.
Would you go back to Broadway at some point?
Oh, I totally would. Yeah, no, about 2 years ago, I did a very short run where I played Morticia Addams in the musical of the Addams Family, which is a great show if you ever get a chance to see it. So funny, so fun. Oh my gosh, we had the best cast. We really had a blast. And before that, just a few years ago, I hadn't done live theater since Cabaret. And so it sort of whet my appetite to get doing it again.
Do you have any dream roles or stuff that you really want to play?
Not really. No.
Not even a favorite musical, for example, that you would like to be a part of?
Nothing comes to mind. I think I'm more like when opportunities come my way, you know, or get closer to being sort of in front of me, like that's when I sort of get excited about it. But off the top of my head, I can't think about anything like that now.
Okay. Well, maybe I think it's time to give the audience a chance to ask some questions. So if there's anything you want to know, please come forward and ask away. I see one person coming from over there, so just come forward and
Hi. Hi.
What was your most memorable scene in Desperate Housewives for you to play?
Yeah, I think it's kind of obvious. No, I mean, not just, you're going to not be surprised probably by my answer, which is the scene where she got locked out of the house naked and then sort of danced across the lawn and ended up in the bushes. I love that on so many levels of not just the writing but how the sort of comedic physicality of it, but also the relationship with the crew. Like when we shot that scene, a lot of that was on Steadicam, where you have your camera operator with a big piece of gear on, and they have the camera on their body, and they're, following you. And it just makes it like a dance with the camera. And it was an intimate scene, and the crew was really, we were all just sort of becoming a family at the beginning of the show like that. And it was like what do you call it? Like a good icebreaker, like just take off all your clothes and do this scene. And so in a lot of ways, beyond just what the character did, it's memorable to me because it started a relationship with a lot of people that I really love from that show.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Let's take the next one from over there.
Hi Terry.
Hi.
I was, well, first of all, I think you are the best Lois Lane the Superman franchise ever had.
Thank you.
And I think it's a pretty big franchise.
Thank you.
I was wondering, do you know if they're considering to make a sequel to Lois and Clark? And if yes, would you be considering to?
Oh, I can't imagine that they would be. I mean, it's a really complicated, because it's such a big machine between the big feature films that they have and the other television. Like I know there's another Superman and Lois now, I think, on, or just whatever, I lose track. I think it's a very big machine. And I think probably rebooting our version of it doesn't really fit into that story. But I mean, if they ever did, I would. I know that both Dean and I, like, one of the reasons way back when they asked me if I would just do a very short scene in Smallville where I played Lois's mother who was dying of cancer, and I did that. And then when Supergirl was happening, they asked me to come play an arc of a evil queen on Supergirl. And I've taken those jobs because I feel like that's sort of a nod to the fans of the community of that genre, and I like the idea of still continuing to participate in it. I think there'd be a better chance of there being another big Superman movie and me maybe getting to play a villain or a next door neighbor or I don't know what, like something almost like a cameo kind of a thing would probably happen before they would reboot it. But if they ever did, of course I would be open to doing that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, next question from that side.
Hello.
Hi.
Nice to meet you. I'm a really big Desperate Housewives fan, and especially from Susan Meyer. And I was wondering if Susan were to ever talk to someone who passed away on the lane, who would it be if she could? And if you could give her any advice in life, because she's kind of clumsy and has a lot of trauma in her life, what would it be?
Oh my, those are deep questions. Well, it's funny because I mean, of course, I would imagine Susan would want to talk to Mike, and that's so very, very sad. I actually, a lot of people don't know this. I was good friends with Catherine Houston in real life. We don't really talk about that much, but she was really cool, and our friendship was, not something that was really in the press or anything, but she was a very awesome, interesting woman. And I would like, Teri, I would like to talk to her because she has passed on, obviously, in real life. And what advice would I give to Susan? I mean, I'm trying to think if this is advice I would give to myself or any woman. I just think I think women in general, and probably I would put Susan in this category, maybe spend too much time trying to please other people and not enough time just being confident in themselves. And so I guess I would offer that idea to Susan. Not that you never want to please other people, but like, it doesn't always have to be first. You know, you can take care of yourself first, and you can believe that you are enough. And I think I would say that to Susan, and I would say that to anybody, including myself.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yes.
Next question.
Hi Teri.
Hi.
I have two questions. The first one is, did you initially audition for Susan? And if you could play any of the other housewives, which one would it be?
I did audition for Susan first. I think I may have also auditioned for Lynette, or maybe I wanted to audition for Lynette because I had a young child at the time, and I felt like I related to the kind of exhaustion and hysteria of being a mom, you know, chasing your kids all over. But they were all great roles. And I sort of, and I think I'm right about this. I think I'm picturing a room of people auditioning where I feel like multiple people were auditioning for multiple parts. And I think that's kind of how it went. Like, as they were casting, I think a lot of people came in and maybe wanted to play some role, but then ended up getting offered a different role. But somehow I think it all magically ended up perfect, because I think everyone who ended up with their own role was, I can't really imagine anybody else in it. So.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead over there.
Hi Teri.
Hi.
I know you mostly from the Lois and Clark series, but what was it for you to be the colleague of Dean Cain and being part of the Superman universe?
Well, I think that most of you that are fans of the show have met Dean, because I know he does a lot of these, and he's very friendly and really lovely, so you know that. And I would think that both of us feel like probably the greatest legacy of having been involved in that show is how many people enjoyed it, and then how the people who watched it when they were young then grew up and ended up having children that then they watch it with, and it just kind of goes on, and that's always just really lovely to hear, that you are part of creating a piece of entertainment that, you know, moms and dads and children can all watch together.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure.
Over there.
Hi, Teri. Someone asked what was the best scene to shoot on this first Housewives. I'd like to know what was the worst for you.
Well, okay, this just dawned on me. I did break my rib doing the pole dancing scene. There was a scene, and I don't even remember why Susan decided she should pretend to be a stripper, or maybe she was being a stripper. I kind of lose the memory of the exact storyline. But there was a stripping scene on a pole, and I went upside down, and somehow I broke my rib. And it was my birthday. That's right, we were shooting it, it was my birthday. My real life girlfriends were in my trailer with a birthday cake. I was upside down on a pole and I broke my rib. But it still wasn't bad. I still wouldn't describe it as the worst. I don't know, I don't think of it as the worst. I was telling someone earlier that maybe the hardest was the very last scene. Often when you're shooting any kind of movie or television, you almost never shoot anything in order of the way it is in the script. But it happened that on the finale of Desperate Housewives, my actual last scene, where she drives the car around the lane and then off, was my last scene that I ever shot. And that's sort of very rare. So Andrea and I were in the car, and we drive around, you know, and we'd already done it a couple of times, and I knew this was going to be our last take. And we drive around, and we drive out, and they say cut. I have a radio in the car, and I hear them say cut, and I just park the car, and I just cried for like 20 minutes. And yeah, that was like letting go of it. It was a huge part of my life. Yeah, but even that, not bad, just emotional.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Go ahead for the last one from the audience.
Hi.
Afternoon, ma'am.
Thank you.
Not so much a question, but I just learned that you enjoy watching bartenders at work, and you went to visit my colleagues last night at Estroboy, Jesse and Robin's place. Any plans for other visits in Ghent, maybe, or would you like some tips?
Oh wow! You know what? I'm shooting a movie in Vancouver, so I'm leaving really quickly. So it is a place that I was just telling my friends, like, I have to come back here because it does seem like a nice place to have a vacation for a few days. And you know, I'm working, so I'm not really out like partying enough. But I would like to come back and do that. I really enjoyed that restaurant, and specifically the cocktails. I mean, I don't really drink, but it was fun to look at the menu, and my friend was drinking, and you know, just watching them make them, and yeah, it was a very cool place.
You couldn't be in a better city to have good drinks.
Okay, I can kind of tell that. Like when you walk around the city, I mean, it was so glorious. Like everybody was out, and everybody was having Aperol and spritz on the, you know, or beer. It was really fun to see.
It's what we do. We're Belgians. We eat and we drink.
Okay, well, I eat and drink too, so I'll be back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, okay, we'll do the last question from there. Go ahead.
Hi. Given that you've played in a couple of these franchises, James Bond, Superman, is there any secret Superman that you would have liked to play with who was not Dean? Do you have
Oh, no.
And maybe for James Bond as well. Is there any, given that you're in Hollywood and you know all of them, maybe?
Yeah, not really. I'm good with who I got.
Okay.
Thank you.
Teri, before I let you go,
Yeah.
I want to ask one more question. Because you've done so many different things already, and you've been working in the industry for quite a while. What is the best and what is the most difficult part about living a life in the public eye?
Oh gosh. Well, you're certainly given a lot of opportunities and privilege that you wouldn't have otherwise. So I think it'd be neglectful to not acknowledge that part of being in the public eye. You know, a large percentage of things that people say about you aren't true, and you just sort of learn to live with that. You know, but I mean, it's a really it's a difficult career in that it's very rare to be successful, and I do tell people, even, you know, for myself, I tell people that the best thing you can do is figure out how you're going to be healthy in the downtimes, like when you're not working. Because if all of your value, and I think this goes across the board, not just for Hollywood, but like if your value in yourself is what other people think of you, or how much money you have, or you know, if you get the job, or you know, if you get the job, if that's the way you value yourself, then that's going to be a hard place to live, because a lot of times things are not going to go your way. Things are not going to say, people are not going to say the right thing, and so your inner strength is what I think is important in life, but in this business, I think too. Yeah.
And if you look back at where you started, are you happy that you didn't become a mathematician?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, yes. I'm super happy with my life, but it is funny. Like, I don't feel like I'm done learning. Like, I'm a curious person, and I will still think things like, should I go learn to code computers? Because I'm like, maybe that would be interesting. So I'm not sorry, and I would have loved to be a math teacher. That was kind of my goal because I thought there weren't enough women in the sciences, and I wanted to be a woman that taught other young girls to, you know, do smart math kind of things. So I would have loved that, you know. So I'm not sorry it went the way it went, but you know, it's not over. Maybe I'll still end up being a math teacher. I don't know.
Well, I hope before you become a math teacher, we still get a lot of nice series and movies from you because
Well, me
you're
too.
so amazing.
Me too. Maybe I can do both. Me
Well,
too.
we'll see that. Terry, thank you so much for being here today. It was
Thank
so
you.
great to talk
Thanks
to you.
everybody for listening.
Please give it up for Teri Hatcher.
Thank you.